Now, while President Trump says the war with Iran could end soon, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has said negotiations with the U.S. is off the table.
After 3 rounds of negotiation, and after the American team in the negotiation, said itself that we made a big progress, still they decided to attack us. So I don't think, talking with Americans anymore would be, on our agenda anymore.
Let's discuss this now with our diplomatic editor, James Bays, who's joining me here in the studio. James, the Iranians clearly not interested in talking right now. Why is that? Why are they putting diplomacy to the side?
Well, I think that they don't trust the United States after what's happened in the past. And it's very interesting that we have President Trump, maybe partly to calm the markets because he's very concerned about the US economy and potentially the political ramifications of that. But him talking now about the war maybe coming to an end, he said his words, very complete pretty much. Sorry about the grammar, it's not mine, his, but that's where he says we're very far ahead of schedule. So different from a few days ago when he was demanding unconditional surrender. Well, I think the Iranians making it very clear to us that there are 2 sides in this war, and the war doesn't end just because President Trump says the war ends. If we have a situation where President Trump declares victory and Iran is still firing missiles, then there is no end to the war. Iran, as I say, twice now feels that diplomacy was used as a ruse. There were talks underway even when this latest conflict started. Further talks have been planned in Geneva. They don't trust the United States, is what they are saying. And so if the US said the war was over, would Iran trust them? I think there's a real problem here that we will not get a repeat of what we had at the end of 12 days in June last year, where it just stopped and in fact, diplomacy resumed, and we even had Iran sitting down with the US for further nuclear talks. I don't think Iran will play that game again.
Yeah, and there's also a third actor. I mean, you said 2 sides, but actually there's a third actor here, which is Israel, which started this war on Iran with the United States. They also, as far as Nita was telling us, are not interested in ending this war right now. How is that going to affect the relationship between the US and Israel?
Yeah, I mean, Trump is involved in a war and he's fighting a war, but it's very much a joint venture with Israel also involved with Prime Minister Netanyahu, and they have been very close so far. An argument, a little bit of a disagreement, we think, over targets when that fuel dump was hit in recent days. But until now, no real disagreement. I think the problems come about where to end the war. President Trump, I think, because he's had so many different reasons for this war, so many shifting reasons why he went to war, very easy for him to say, well, I've met my objectives, the war is over. For Prime Minister Netanyahu, he hasn't had shifting aims. He has made it clear that he wants to remove the regime in Tehran. He's been saying that not just at the start of this conflict, he's been saying it for decades. It's been almost one of the major issues of his whole political career. And with elections due in Israel, will the Israeli public accept a situation where you have the son of the supreme leader, now the supreme leader, a more hardline figure? The Israeli population have had Iran demonized by Netanyahu for decades. The US may be prepared, the US public may be prepared to accept that scenario because they're not following this as closely. The Israelis, I think, no.
Right. What about other big powers here, Russia and China? Is there any indication that they are perhaps doing something behind the scenes to try and end this conflict? Because as we've heard from Saudi Arabia, huge consequences, huge economic implications if the Strait of Hormuz continues to remain closed.
Well, we've heard from the Deputy Foreign Minister of Iran that perhaps Russia and China, which are allies of Iran, although they've not joined in any way militarily, and France, another key player, have talked about possible negotiations. That would be interesting because there's this mistrust on both sides that we have there now. Could this be internationalized? Could there be an international mechanism? And in fact, it almost takes us back to where we were before all of this, before Trump ended the nuclear deal, because there was the old P5+1, the 5 permanent members of the Security Council and Germany involved in joint diplomacy. Maybe a mechanism like that that is needed to end that. But of course, President Trump, that's not something he's accepted till now. He's very much wanted to call all the shots.
James, thank you very much. James Bays is our diplomatic editor.